Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today we're going to talk about why the mainstream, legacy media just can't stand that Joe Rogan character, what it means for preppers, and what this whole tribalism is going to amount to if the shizzy hits the fizzy. Let's get to it. Alright, so I want to talk about why this whole Rogan controversy pertains to preparedness. I've been a long time listener to Rogan, not because of any particular political leanings. In fact, I think Joe is quite a moderate, and that is precisely why the mainstream, legacy media does not like the guy one bit, because he is trying to, whether intentional or not, destroy their business model. And what is their business model? It's catering to one group or another, keeping everybody divided. That's what it's all about. You guys know how the algorithms are programmed to give you more of the same information, so you become deeper and deeper and more entrenched in your ideas, so you stay on the platform and you're fuming at the mouth and your butt hurt. That's basically what the algorithms want, and that's what a lot of these mainstream media networks want. They want people as polarized as possible. And what is that sort of tribalism going to amount to if it hits the fan? Well, it's going to amount to absolute chaos, because people are more divided than ever before. That's been evidence in this past week here in Canada with the convoy rolling through. Now you're starting to have the counter protests coming in. The police are cracking down. They're declaring a state of emergency. Everybody is just wildly divided, more so than I've ever seen in all of my life. And this is supposed to be the age of unity, the age where we're more culturally evolved, okay? And in some ways, I guess you could say it is. In some ways, you could say that there's more integration there than there ever was before. But in the same sense, there's also this latent segregation going on between people, which is self-segregating, in part served up by the media. But indeed, they don't like Rogan because Rogan is a genuine, inquisitive mind who is trying to figure things out. Has he said things that I disagree with? Absolutely. Every other episode, the guy says something that makes me roll my eyes. But I appreciate Rogan because he has all kinds of guests on his program. And the fact that they're trying to label him as right-wing, as if that in itself is a valid criticism per se, but as if they're trying to brand him as that when the guy's had Bernie Sanders on his show. He's for universal health care. He's for universal basic income as well. He's also a supporter of all sorts of rights, trans, minorities, women, all that kind of stuff. He's very outspoken about these sorts of things. He just happens to be pro-2A, and he happens to have several people from the right end of the spectrum, be it Ben Shapiro, Alex Jones, all those guys. He has them on the program occasionally, okay? And they don't like that because he's trying to essentially bridge the divide. Now, some people say he's a fence sitter. I totally disagree with that. I think Joe Rogan is probably one of the best diplomats that we have. And whether that says something about our society, that a comedian, I'm not trying to disparage him, but that just a run-of-the-mill comedian he's funny, okay, but it's not like he's wildly intellectual. I mean, he's a smart guy. We live in a day and age when a person like that is at the forefront and that millions of people, has one of the most popular podcasts in the world. Why? Because people are starved for authenticity and authentic conversation, so they're gravitating towards that type of fair and balanced content where he's willing to interview people of varying different perspectives, okay? And the mainstream media is suffering as a result of it. They see their market share drying up. They need people radicalized. They need people polarized and fighting with one another so that they can sell their t-shirts and their BS that they're selling. Because let's face it, everybody needs an enemy. Just like the Joker needs Batman. You know, when the Joker is telling Batman, he's like, "You complete me." Same thing with CNN and Fox News. They need each other, because the moment that they lose that whole political angle, they're going to lose a lot of their target market. And that's one thing I personally never want to be, is a target. People say, "Nate, you're a fence sitter on a lot of these issues." The truth of the matter is, if you don't want to get sniped, if you don't want to be a target, if you don't want to be 100% predictable, you need to learn how to zigzag in life. You ever heard that expression, he zigged when he should have zagged? You're going to get clipped if you're just running straight in one direction where somebody can predict what your next move is going to be. That's why you'll never see me become a registered voting of any direction per se, okay? If the time comes to vote right, I'll vote right. If the time comes to vote left, I'll vote left. Hell, I live in a province which is renowned for its socialist NDP roots, and we are now one of the bluest, and blue in Canada actually means conservative. We're one of the most conservative provinces now out of all of Canada, okay? And that shows that people flip-flop, that the times change. What is the end result of leaning right or left constantly going to be? Well, it's probably going to be you're spinning in circles, you're crashing airplanes, you're driving off the road, you're an imbalanced teeter-totter who can't get off the ground and can't stay balanced. And no matter what metaphor you choose, okay, it's probably not going to end well in the long run. But there is a time to lean right, and there is a time to lean left. I do believe. Now, if you're a lifetime person on the right, or if you're a lifetime person on the left, and we can still get along, we can still have drinks, we can still have conversation, just like Joe does with his diverse plethora of interviewees that he has on, then great. That's a great thing. I'm not saying that you have to espouse the same viewpoint as me. I'm just very Socratic in my thinking, and I don't like being forced to accept an entire basket of ideas simply because I might agree with 2 or 3 things that the right has to say. Maybe I agree with 2 or 3 things that the left has to say. So I take 2 or 3 of those things, and that's what I use to define myself. I don't just say, oh, I agree with being pro 2A, so that means I must agree with every single thing that the right has to say. No, I have to prioritize what's most meaningful for me at that period of time. But what I'm saying essentially is the reason why they can't stand Rogan is because he's the one guy in media who is really trying to do this, who is really trying to bring, and I shouldn't say the one guy, but he's really at the forefront, and he has burst onto the scene in a way which mainstream media simply can't compete with. His viewership far exceeds, I think, all of the mainstream news networks combined at this point. And that is scaring the living shit out of them, because that means that he is really digging into their market share, and not so much of their market share of viewership necessarily, but even the mindset of people. You see, they need people to be supercharged. And what is happening right now is that this supercharged polarity that is building up, I equate it to like one of those video games where, you know, you have the character who has the energy force field that he's charging up, and right before he releases it, it's this super intense ball of energy. That's kind of what people are like right now. We're just simmering, you know, we're reaching a boiling point. And if the shizzy ever actually hit the fizzy, I worry that people will be more polarized along linguistic, ethnic, local, demographic, municipal, geographical, whatever lines. People are going to be heavily polarized because we are becoming more tribal. The media and the algorithms are ultimately stoking that fire every single day. Now, what I'm trying to do with Canadian prepper and a lot of people that I know in this prepping space, like city prepping, the urban prepper, full spectrum survival, we reserve our political opinions, not because we don't have political opinions, but just that we understand the importance of the game that is being played right now. We don't want our viewers to be sucked into this sort of political dialectic, which only keeps people divided, when the fact is, prepare to go off grid, because soon we won't have a chance. And it's not going to matter if you're left or right, and it's certainly not going to matter if you're left or right after a major disaster hits and the smoke clears. All there's going to be is survivors and not survivors. And that's one of the great things I like about shows like The Walking Dead. A lot of those differences that we fought over while times were good just fall by the wayside when our primary occupation becomes survival. We don't have to worry about all our demographic differences and our preferences and our religion and whatnot. We are just worried about survival. And so I try to not alienate people on this channel. I understand that it's probably not done me well either, because I see myself in a similar boat as Rogan, in the sense that I'm not just playing the music that either side necessarily likes to hear. And it's drastically impeded the growth of my channel that I'm a pro-climate person who happens to also be pro-2A. I'm very much aligned with what Rogan has to say, not because Rogan said so, but because I come to these ideas on my own. I don't idolize anybody, and you shouldn't idolize me. I'm not a fanatic, okay? I understand that there's a lot of things that Rogan says and does that I personally don't like. However, we are very similar in the sense that we try to look at issues on an issue by issue basis, and we are not put in a box that we can be easily sniped out and be easily predictable, because I do believe that that's what they want. And what they don't want people united. They truly don't want people united. You need to understand that this bipolarity, it creates an energy field that almost keeps civilization moving. And it's unfortunate, but it's gotten to the point where it's become so extreme. Okay, and when it gets this extreme, it becomes extremely dangerous. One idea that I really cannot comprehend is how people think that the big tech oligarchs have any political leanings whatsoever. You see, here's the thing. If my channel went hardline conservative, I would have a lot more viewers. If my channel went hardcore leftist, socialist, the socialist prepper, I absolutely guarantee you, and the person who does that, they're going to get a lot of hits, okay? Once you make prepping something which is very targeted towards any particular political paradigm, or even religion for that matter, you're going to do very well. The reason why I don't do that is because I try to create universal appeal. But I can tell you that tech oligarchs, they care about one thing, and that's the bottom line. And there's a lot of people who don't know how finance works, I think, who think that these shareholders, primary shareholders, sit around a boardroom meeting at the end of the fiscal year talking about how they can somehow not cater to 50% of the population because they espouse this right-wing political views, so we're going to try to make sure that they don't use the platform. Those 50% of people have a lot of money to spend on ads, and they click a lot of things. So like hell, they're going to want to alienate those people. All they're trying to do is appease the government, regulatory agencies. It has absolutely nothing to do with YouTube not liking conservatives or anything like that. Get that out of your mindset. You need to understand that these people care about one thing, and it's all about the bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're right or left at the end of the day. If you believe that there's some sort of political, ideological endgame that is motivating these people, then my friend, you are probably going to get taken for a ride after it hits the fan, and you have to rely on your street smarts. If that's how you think this game is played, I can guarantee you it absolutely isn't. You're probably just seeing it the way the algorithm wants you to see it, because it's got you trapped in this virtual filter bubble where it's giving you more and more of the same information, and you start to have a normalcy bias, and you think that everybody else has the same view of you, and all liberals are like this or all conservatives are like that. I challenge you to throw your algorithm a curveball and start looking up information which runs contrary to your political or ideological or religious beliefs. And just do that for a while, and you'll see that there's this whole other reality out there which you're perhaps not being exposed to because of the algorithm. And the same thing goes with Fox and CNN. They want you playing on either side of the tracks. One will say it's for freedom, and the other will claim moral superiority as well. Okay, so you really got to be careful, guys. All I'm saying is that's why they don't like Rogan. They're trying to take him down. And I do find it incredibly suspicious with Rogan going to Spotify in the first place. And if I was to put on my tinfoil hat and let it resonate at a very high frequency, I would wonder to myself, isn't it kind of convenient that they were able to take him off the second largest search engine platform in the world, YouTube, get him onto Spotify, put him on the payroll, and then suddenly he's on somebody's payroll, okay? I just find that interesting. That's all I'm going to say about it. Now, some people are going to, I probably shouldn't have added that piece because people are going to run wild with conspiracies in the comment section below. But it was kind of convenient. Maybe it worked out great for him. He got his $50 million or $100 million, whatever it was. But it just seems kind of strange that now he's off on that platform where he's not really on the platform that everybody else is on. Now, Spotify's popular. His podcast has grown in size, but it's now growing as a right-wing channel because, you see, it's either all or nothing with these media conglomerates. Either you're all one way, you're serving all of our target market, or you're serving that other target market out there. And they need a nemesis in order to assert their moral superiority. So you have Rogan, this guy who's as liberal as they come in terms of his expressed views on the channel, which he's explicitly stated over and over again. And because he's interviewed some people who are on the right, they're trying to pigeonhole him into that whole alt-right gateway into alt-right, because it makes financial sense for them to do so, because it gets clicks. And that's what it's all about. Then you have these uninformed musicians come on who are trying to make a statement or something in the best way that they know how, in a way which is basically doing nothing but purely symbolic gestures, even though they're now taking their music over to platforms which have even greater human rights violations than the ones that they're claiming that, you know, Rogan is a part of, which of course he isn't. But anyways, guys, I just think the whole situation is FUBAR. As preppers, we need to keep our heads. I love that my audience is, I've pretty much groomed it, I think, that we're fairly apolitical here. We express our political opinions, we zig, we zag, but at the end of the day, we can come together, we can have conversations, and that's the most important thing, that we don't shut the door on each other, that we are open to communicating. That doesn't mean screaming our opinions and just going into a conversation believing that we're 100% right. That means being willing to be open-minded to other ideas. So what ultimately comes of this Rogan thing is going to be very significant, because if he does ultimately get canceled, which I don't think he's going to. I really can't see it happening. They're probably going to ask him to rein it in. But if he does get canceled, it is going to be a huge setback for just the internet as a whole, because it's going to mean that we've entered an era where you no longer have somebody who has that size of a platform who is willing to at least bring these alternative viewpoints for discussion. And if they can take down him, they can basically take down anyone. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Canadian Prepper out.